Hello and welcome everyone to our podcast. I'm here joined with Tom Van Overbeek of the local Chico City Council.
Good afternoon, Brent.
Good afternoon. And we are talking today about a really important subject. On this podcast, we talk about all kinds of topics that affect the local stakeholder in Chico, the citizens of Chico, things that are really important. And today it's kind of interesting. I really like this, but the topic for today is, what kind of town do we want to live in? What is the vision of Chico? And so that's what we're going to be discussing today, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. 50 years ago, we had a great quality of civic life here, and it has degraded gradually to
Right.
and my colleagues and I on the city council are determined to get it back.
Yeah.
But let me ask you a question, Brent. When you don't think about it, just give me the picture that pops into your head when you think about the kind of town you want to raise your kids in.
Yeah.
What comes into your head?
Okay, so when I close my eyes, I just visualize like a vision of Chico that I love. Well, for me, I have young kids. And so my mind immediately goes to raising a family, a safe place to raise a family, a place with recreation, a place with, parks and community, and the small town vibe. I think is just so important, where people, your neighbors, the people on the sports teams and the schools and all this other stuff. All that's super
the checkout
important.
person at the grocery store.
The checkout person at the you go to the coffee shop.
You're walking downtown, your friend drives by in the car and honks and waves.
Yeah, the proverbial cheers of restaurants, where everyone knows your name. You walk in, which I have at certain places that I frequent a lot. I go. It's not uncommon to know 3-4 people.
Yeah.
And I love when I go in and I know the people in the establishment, whatever it is.
It's a human connection.
Yes. Yeah, so that's probably like the vision of Chico that appeals to me.
Well, so the reason I think most people live here is they have a similar vision, but what that's called is a high quality of civic life. So interestingly, you could have written the city's mission statement, which is a safe place to raise a family, an ideal place to have a business, and a premier place to live. And so that what you just articulated is exactly what the city's mission statement is and what we're all determined to do.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's gotten away from us.
Yeah. Now, why is that? Why does it seem like an uphill battle to create this kind of vision, to live up to this? It just seems like if you want to do something with, safety, cleanliness, it just seems like it's a fight.
It's a terrible fight. So the fundamental issue is, if it gets back to policy and leadership, what is your mission? If you're in political leadership in a town or a state or a county, what's your mission? Is your mission to make this the best place to live for the most citizens, or is it to take care of homeless people, right? So what's happened in California, and the reason we have more than half of the unhoused homeless in the entire country, even though we have 13% of the population, is that somehow the people who run this state and the people who used to run Chico decided that the welfare of the homeless people took precedence to the welfare of the citizens at large. And that's just completely backwards, because then what happens is they define they define life for everybody else in Chico. So the fact that the parks, they were camped in our parks, camped in our downtown. Once you have homeless people camped in a public place, it destroys it for everybody else. Because not only, 79% of these people have been incarcerated, according to a survey that was done in San Francisco. I don't know what the number is in Chico, but I suspect it's pretty similar. Most of them are drug addicted. Nobody knows for sure, but all you have to do is walk around and look at them. People passed out, first thing in the morning. They're drug addicted. They're criminals. And that's gross generalization. There are some truly misfortunate people that are in that situation. But we've let those people define our civic life, and we're living with the consequences. So now we're trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And we are.
Okay. And so what does that look? When you look at us, you have the mission statement, a safe place to raise a family, quality businesses, a premier place to live, all this. Do you feel like your colleagues on the city council and the people who are coming, is everyone behind this, or are there people who are opposed to this mission?
Well, there are, the only conclusion I can come to when you look at states like California is that this situation exists because people want it to be that way. There are some group of people who want it to be that way. So whenever the city is trying to clear out a homeless encampment and move them into the shelter, the Northern California Legal Services people fight us tooth and nail. Well, why would they do that, and who's paying them, right?
Yeah.
And the reason they do it is they want those homeless people out there. And that has nothing to do with compassion, because they die at 5 times the rate of the general population. It's not compassionate to let somebody live in a tent and do drugs. I mean, if your brother, I don't know if you have a brother, but if you had
Hi, brother.
if your brother was a drug addict living in a tent, would you bring him drugs and help him stay in the tent? You'd go get him and say, "You're coming with me, pal. We're going to get you some help." What we don't want is a town that is defined by the homeless population, and that's what we had. We're in the process of trying to fix it. We have some limitations imposed by a federal judge, but it's dramatically better than it was. But until we make this place safe and clean, we're not going to get to the quality of civic life that you articulated so well at the beginning of our conversation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it seems like the uphill battle, it sounds like there's a population that, they feel like they're doing the right thing. They're doing the altruistic, virtuous.
They're doing it because it makes them feel good about themselves. It has nothing to do with whether it helps anybody else. That's important to understand.
Do you think that there's a consensus among those who are, they call, homeless advocates or whatever? Do you feel like there's a consensus that what we're doing is not working, or do they feel like, hey, let's keep doing more of the same?
No, they think we need to do more of what is not working, even though, right now there are 2 models for dealing with homelessness in the United States. You can look at Texas and Florida. They've cut the rates of homelessness in half in the last 10 years. They spend 1/10 what we spend per person, and you can look at California, where homelessness has exploded, continues to grow, right? Because the policies that California has followed have enabled homelessness. It hasn't reduced it. It's compounded the misery.
And the side that is apparently pulling the strings and making the decisions and funding the organizations doesn't realize that we're making the situation worse. Is that what you're saying?
It's hard to believe that they couldn't realize it, but they are. I think they're intentionally. They want these homeless people are pawns. They intentionally want them out there to demonstrate the failure of capitalism, and because they want to impose socialism. You think about just how everything that is the underpinnings of our culture and society is under siege. The family, the concept of property rights, capitalism, right? That's what built the country. And you can argue that we should be fairer and more equitable, but you can't argue that this has been the greatest success, our government and our country in the history of the world. Right, and that's the way the rest of the world and the rest of the United States outside of the Ninth Circuit is run. You cannot squat on public property. Until we fix that, we're not going to get the quality of civic life that we frankly deserve. And it's why we live in a small town, small city.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there's a vision for Chico. There's a clear mission that you shared in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that what I expressed in the beginning is probably similar to what a lot of people want: a clean, safe place to live.
Yeah.
A prosperous place. So it sounds like what you're saying is the homeless situation is the thing, the top thing that's diminishing that vision and prohibiting it from moving forward.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's no there's no way around it. I mean, you remember when Bidwell Park had all the people camped in it, all the homeless
Yeah,
people
I
camped in it
remember
with
that.
the crazy dogs, and
Yes, all of
and
it.
then it got cleared out. And I remember you sent me a note and said, "Oh my God, it's like night and day. It's a
Yeah.
whole different place." Right?
Yeah, yeah, it
So
was.
but we have to manage these, have the will to manage these things, and get the town to the place we want it, and not just throw up our hands and say, "Oh, this is just the way it is, and we don't want to infringe on those poor people's rights,"
Right.
and in the process allow this least functioning 0.5% of the population to define the life for everybody else.
So how do in Chico, what do you suggest?
Well, so what we're doing now is clearing these camps. We're under a restraining order from a federal judge. So it's limiting, we have to give 17-day notice. But to the extent that we can, we are keeping these people moving. The last time I checked, we had 50 empty shelter beds, so they have a place to go, right, if they choose to go there. A lot of them don't go. They don't want to go because they can't do drugs, and, What's very clear to anybody that is objective is that what we're doing in California is failing, has failed. I mean, we've been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
Other states have been doing other things for decades. And what we're doing is failing, right? Yeah. And there are people. So you say, why do we keep doing this? And it's because there are a large group of people out there who want us to be faced with this squalor and these crazy dystopian homeless camps.
It's all linked because the federal and the state affect the local, and if you want to have a local policy, your hands are tied by certain federal and state judges.
We are very limited by the state of California, by what we can do. But there is a lot that we can do, and we have to be determined, not throw up our hands and say, "Oh, well, that's just the way it is. We have to live with it." Throw up our hands. We can't do that, and we have to say, no, we want to have this place be as great a place to live for our children and grandchildren as it was for us when we were kids.
Yeah, so what can we do?
Well, what we are doing is increasing the number of police. So there's police presence, right? Good. So you got to remember, 79% of these homeless people have been incarcerated. A large percentage of them have outstanding warrants. Whenever they see anybody in a uniform, they scatter like pigeons, right? So just having police presence is a huge benefit.
Okay.
Now, so that's one thing we can do. The second thing we can do is actively, move these people out of the encampment, the illegal encampments. And into shelter. And the ones that don't want to go, that's unfortunate. They have to go somewhere else, but they can't stay here.
They can't stay in Chico.
Well, I mean, they can't. They can't continue to occupy our public spaces, and so we are in the process of moving. Every time we get a group of them, it takes 17 days, but we clear them out.
Okay. So it's kind of like people talk about it like whack-a-mole, like something pops up, you whack it, but then it pops up over here, you whack it.
Oh, that's right. But at some point, the moles get tired, and they go somewhere else.
So it's who's more resilient, the city?
But you got to decide whether you're going to create an environment where that behavior is welcomed, or it's discouraged. And the net of it is, when you have these people occupying our public spaces, they destroy the quality of civic life. They destroy it.
Yeah.
Right. So until we fix that, we can't fix the quality of our civic life.
So it sounds like what we can do, one, hire more police to police the homeless areas. And I think that's just great for safety in general, which is great. Two is not allow a comfortable place for people to camp in our public places.
Unless it's a designated campground. There's a designated campground out in Eaton and Cohasset.
Yeah.
And that's a mess, but at least that's a place where it's okay for them to go.
Okay. Is there anything else that we can do to contribute to the mission of Chico, the mission statement?
Well, I think there is the perception of safety, and part of it is that when things are clean and orderly. So if you own a building downtown, like I do, you keep it clean. You if you're doing construction, you keep the construction site tidy. You clean the sidewalks. You take pride in your town. You go to a neighborhood where the lawn's 2 feet high and there's a car parked on the lawn, and it's leaking oil, and the house is in disrepair. You think this is not a really great place to live.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So even though the people inside could be just
great
Wonderful. People, but that's not the
good.
perception you have. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, and that's true of a city. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that, keeping the place, we've increased the, given code enforcement some teeth to enforce, make building owners downtown make their buildings presentable.
Good.
City can't do it by itself, and the police can't do it by itself. Like, everybody needs to take responsibility for making this a great town and looking out for other people.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent. Okay, so if citizens want to get a hold of you and they want to ask questions or, maybe make some comments or whatever on this, how can they get a hold of you, Tom?
So if you go on the city website, my email is, all the city council people have emails.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you email me. A lot of people do.
Yeah, you get a lot of emails?
I get a lot of emails, and people usually reach out to their city council people when they're unhappy about something, which is fine. That's all right.
Okay.
So,
all right.
But yeah, they should just send me an email.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks so much for talking about
you bet.
How to make our city a place we all want to live in, and we appreciate your time.
We're getting there.
All right.
Thanks, Brad.
Sounds good. Thank you.